On our episode today, I have Ankur Goyal, the SVP of Growth at Coterie. He's super smart. We got a chance to talk, learned all things brand. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Well, I am really excited to even just get started because I love this market. It's such a fascinating market. So tell us a bit about your background, what your role is and who you are.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the SVP of Growth at Coterie. What I'm focusing on at Coterie predominantly is D2C revenue. And for us, the way we structure our business, D2C is the vast majority and the main focus of revenue. We do have wholesale, which is very exciting. And we've structured that to, again, support D2C. But when you're owning D2C revenue, it's those big levers of acquisition, be it paid acquisition or organic acquisition, retention, and even the creative needed to power both of those. It's really important to me that is part of the equation. And we're going to talk a lot about that, I think, in the next 20, 30 minutes. My background has always been in consumer brands and scaling consumer brands. I did it in big CPG contexts briefly at the start of my career to understand, hey, how do the people have done it before? How do they approach it? Got to learn a lot about some of that traditional brand building and how they approach that. But I think also saw a lot of the opportunities and things that they weren't doing. And it made me really emboldened to, we'll figure out what excellent and what the modern version of excellent and great could look like and maybe create what that looks like. And so for the past 7-8 years have been in digitally native, largely D2C subscription brands and kind of made an edge in subscription and what I call like single SKU or few SKU kind of brands where you don't have in a product innovation and launches every week as your main lever, which is a valid model, which is not, this model. And been doing that for the past 8 years, been at Coterie for 4 years, and it's been amazing. We've gotten to scale the business 15x, and we're now, we hit the 100 million mark 2 years ago and have grown and been profitable since. And so we're really excited about that.
I know, I'm so jealous of the have been profitable since part too, right? Like not having to go back and keep raising money sounds fantastic and is a testament to the brand itself. So just for context, can you talk a little bit about Coterie? What is it? What makes it special?
Yeah. So Coterie, and actually I'm in my nursery. If you guys could not tell if you're only on audio, but in video you can very much tell. So we got a little bit of what this looks like in case, no one's seen it before. But yeah, it's just very high performing diapers. Some of the highest performing diapers on the market. And the real aha moment and we'll talk more about this, but a lot of parents say, well, when you have better absorption, you can wick away moisture really, really quickly in seconds. That means that your baby doesn't feel cold when they pee at night. So they might not wake up, or they don't have water sitting next to their skin. So that kind of rash issue becomes a lot more manageable. And so those are the kind of things that we do for our parents.
Oh my God. As a parent to two, diaper rash is our nightmare. So I appreciate this all the way through. But Ankur, let's talk about brand positioning and messaging, because this is the stuff that I got really excited when we first talked. One of the perspectives we have at Coterie is that performance marketing only goes so far, and you really need good messaging and you really need good brand positioning to help you escalate through that part. So when we're talking about messaging pillars and messaging, how do you guys think about it? How do you actually define that? What does that mean to you guys?
Yeah. And then I might be veering on the edge of pedantic here, but I think it's really, really important because even what you just said, performance marketing only gets you so far. You have to think about messaging. And like my response to that is, if you're any kind of marketer and you're not thinking about what you're saying to convince somebody, then like, what are you doing? You're not going to drive performance. And so like, I'm a performance marketer. I'm a performance person through and through and through. And the number one thing that I think about is our messaging angles, or one of the top things I think about is your message. I mean, I kind of told you earlier on, like our growth creative function is a really, really important structural advantage that I think we have. And I think it kind of speaks to how important it's one of your biggest tools in your arsenal. So I just want to like create, or at least state that POV. I think we share the POV, and it's just this, I'm kind of on semantics, but I think from an industry perspective and maybe from an audience perspective, how we define what is performance, what is brand, what is all this, like, it just drives me crazy. And it's like, what are you saying to persuade people? Performance marketing is the art of persuasion in my mind. I think all marketing is the art of persuasion. And so when we talk about that, then I can answer your question, which is, yeah, please.
No, it's 'cause I think it's really funny because I think that a lot of people think performance marketing is how did I set up my meta ad structure? What was my Google Ads campaign looking like? And to me, that is so far from performance marketing. That's like the smallest piece of it. And in fact, I would say that if you are focused on that, it's because you're afraid to talk to your own customer and like just get out, like walk away from your computer, go talk to your customers, find out what actually matters to them. Your meta ad structure is going to make a 2% increase. Getting the right messaging is going to make a step change increase. And so that's the part that I think you and I are 100% aligned on.
100%. 100%. So back to your original question, which is like, well, so then how do you think about messaging and how do you think about messaging pillars? Yeah, I think about it as the foundation of what you're doing. And I think about what will persuade somebody. And I think the word persuade is so important to me versus the word inspire. I think marketing talks about both, and there's a time and a place for both. But I think what's going to drive, I think one big thing that drives sustainable business performance is the art of persuasion. And so what messaging pillar is, hey, what is a kind of a pitch? You have your elevator pitch to your investors. You have your elevator pitch to a lot of people when you're talking to your friends about your company. What's your pitch to your consumer? Because they need that pitch too. And so we've developed a lot of different messaging pillars at Coterie, and it's not always this big top-down driven thing. You kind of bottoms up figure it out, and you figure out one, and that will take you for a long time. And then a year later, you can layer in the next one and like expand that, and then you can keep on layering in more and more. And that, for me, is how I think about growth and expanding the pie.
I mean, just a tactical example of that is the way you spoke about Coterie and the absorbency of the diaper and how it means that the baby doesn't get cold at night, which means that you can sleep longer through the night. The idea of sleeping longer through the night because of a diaper, I will absolutely buy that diaper and try it. And like, that's the messaging pillar that then becomes this step change versus, you know, figuring out what is the right structure or where I'm going to put my next dollar. I guess the question that I would ask you is, for someone who's just starting down this route, who's just, you know, going, okay, I'm on board. Like, I recognize that these angles or these thought processes are important. Where do you even get started? How did you guys even start thinking about these benefits or these, you know, values?
Yeah. So I'll talk about, well, in general, so there's a lot of different ways this happens. For this particular sleep one, it happened from reading reviews. So when I kind of came to Coterie 4 years ago, I didn't know anything about diapers, and I read all of the documents that we have really, really amazing product innovation in-house. So I read what the diaper scientists and experts were telling, and to figure out what this diaper does, and I learned a lot about it. And I also wrote what consumers were saying, and that was an aha moment for me. I'm like, that feels pretty powerful. Are we talking about this? And I didn't come on the scene with nothing, right? Like, Coterie had been on sale for about like 12 or 18 months at that point. So I could look at some old data, and I'm like, hey, we talked about this once or twice, and there was something there. We can keep pulling this thread, like stars are aligning here. So that was a big push earlier on to be like, well, let's test into this and expand this. And so I think that speaks to a couple of things, and you kind of said it yourself, which is like, talk to your customer. You can talk to them, or luckily in this digital environment, there's a lot of ways to see what value you're bringing to your customer's life. CX tickets, reviews, all that kind of stuff. CX tickets helped us figure out some other stuff to further scale. But I think the other structural piece that I do think we need to mention is the fact that I don't think any of this would have been possible if my ads were competing against the ads that were testing messaging were competing against like 50% off discount ads. So I will never run any advertising that has a sale offer, or any offer or any sale And that's hard to do. Well, it's probably hard to do for a lot of the people listening. And I think, again, if you're a multi-SKU, if you're in clothing or beauty, I I can't say this is the optimal. I think for subscription, what the heck is the point of a sale? Like you're subscribing, you're gonna lose those customers in the next renewal anyway. So like it's really for me, it's really easy to resist that temptation. But the whole point of this is, sorry, not to get too far into discount strategy, but it's like part of the reason why I think there's bifurcation exists in the industry is like what's brand, what's performance, what's this. When you take away the sale as a lever that you have, everything kind of makes sense in my opinion. Because if you cannot just advertise a sale, now you have to make the most compelling ad that you can possibly do to drive performance. Well, that is forcing you to figure out and really hone in on messaging. And the ads that are doing that can finally get spend because you're not going to get all your spend on your 50% off offers and then nothing's going to work.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So the sale part and even just like this conversation that we're having right now, there's a few things. So the first one is just, I love that your customer angles and your messaging angles didn't come from your product team. And they may start from your product development team, but they were refined and confirmed by, customer testimonials and reviews and feedback, right? So I think that is really important because the product team is still making an assumption when they build the product. It's not build it and they will come. It's build it and let's make sure that it aligns with them and that it works. So I think that's an important piece. The other thing that I will say is for when we look at brands and we see brands that are constantly running discounts, the first thing that comes to mind for me is one of two things. Either they don't know what their marketing is and they're having a really hard time with messaging, or they don't believe in their product and the only way they can sell it is if it were cheaper than the competitive set. And I think that like when you start to push back on brands and say, hey, if you actually believe in your product, then we should get paid what you think it's worth. And let's figure out how to actually promote it to that. It changes the perspective. And then, the third thing I will say is, there's a lot of people that are going to probably say, well, of course you don't, you don't have to discount. Your market doesn't discount a lot. And I would say, please go take a look at diapers and see how often they are discounted and the rate at which they're discounted. So competitive pressure on discount, I'm sure, is huge for you guys too.
100%. Exactly. And I think the third thing that you hear is like, oh, well, you're a Coterie. Like you guys have a brand, you don't discount. It's like, well, we weren't one 4 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we were able to build one. And we're doing it from there is a team at Coterie, like a brand marketing team, and like we respect each other immensely. But at the end of the day, like what they're thinking about is a lot of levers that focus on deepening relationship with the brand post acquisition as well, like organic social community. There's some upper funnel brand building that we punctuate, like have some tentpole moments with, but a lot of what built awareness of Coterie is the millions of dollars that we've pumped into Meta and TV. If it didn't, that would be a really big waste of money. And so we have to think about building the brand with these dollars too, and just like explain to people why this thing's amazing.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that's why I also hate this brand versus performance like perspective, because your performance the worst part about it too is the majority of your money is going to performance ads. Therefore, that has the most brand impact overall. So like it is brand all said and done. And so I love that you guys don't take that kind of perspective also. So I guess, we talked about messaging, we're talking about it. One of the biggest questions that people always ask is, well, how do I know I've got the right messaging? Like, how do I know it's working? So what KPIs, what signals, how do you define like this message is working, this wasn't working, we're going to continue down this route?
Yeah. So I think that's where, the performance marketer mindset, like I said, this is all coming from a performance-based place. It should kick in. You will, like the same way that you figure out if your other ads are working. So I'm thinking about purchases. If purchases are not coming in because of this message, then this message might not be it. Now, I think if you're just embarking on your journey and you're like just figuring out your messaging angles and all that stuff, I think if you see a really big if a message can scale in Facebook, sorry, I say Facebook, Meta.
Meta, yeah, it's Facebook, Instagram.
I
That's
grew
fine.
up when Facebook was Facebook, so that's why we're calling it Facebook. But Instagram, Facebook, Meta. If it can scale and if it has a lot of high click through rate, that's a good signal that okay, you've tapped into a vein of interest. If it's not converting right now, that's not oh, just wait, it'll eventually convert. No, I think that's the part where it probably frustrates people when they hear about brand building messaging. It's like I can't just wait. I don't have that kind of the financials for that payback period. And frankly, you can't like just waiting doesn't magically change stuff. You have to change stuff. So if you're like, okay, I got interest, but it's not yet converting, then what I would do is be like, understand if it's too good to be true and there's a false promise or that promise is not being carried through and the customer is going to be nervous. Or if that message is just a little too, is not going to appeal to someone that actually wants your product. Like I could put a parenting meme up and that would drive huge scale convert and click through rate. But that's not really like finding someone that's in the market to find diapers. So think about those couple of things. There might be you've just done clickbait or you've promised something and now you're on something you got to carry through. But in general, you should be seeing this, otherwise you haven't nailed it.
I love the perspective of maybe you've just done clickbait, because I imagine that happens more often than people realize, where you make a promise in the ad, you don't follow through on it, or maybe you have followed through on the landing page, but then your CX tickets are like, guys, this isn't what I expected, or like what happened. So there is definitely nuance all the way around in terms of like how you message it and see it perform well. It's really interesting though, because you spoke about creative really well, and when we spoke, you guys do have this like unfair advantage in your creative process internally. Can you talk a little bit about that, about how you guys do creative testing, how it works with your marketing processes? Just what is your perspective around that and how you've kind of built it?
Yeah, so I think what I'm about to say is like not going to be revolutionary or new, but you have to create your creative sprint cycle. And so what that looks like is whoever is owning this, in our case, it is like a senior creative person who understands creative strategy and execution and like can source new raw assets. In other orgs, this might be someone that's more in like the head of growth seat, because but that's fine. Just like whoever it is, the jobs that have to be done are, you have to understand your next 3 to 4 weeks of creative production. What messaging angles are you trying, or what proven messaging angles you already have that you're just expanding or trying new things within those or just iterating on. And you have to have that roadmap. Ideally, it's balanced between some safe bets and some big bets. And then every week you are briefing stuff in and getting it produced. And then I think it's important. I think a lot of brands I've spoken to are like, yeah, I could do that, but like, well, that's hard enough. But then how do I actually get this through? And so, again, this was the part of the stuff, the groundwork that we laid 4 years ago. It's important to me. The brand and creative team that we have, while they're not the ones that, are producing the growth creative, our creative director needs to know what her brand also looks like, like in the market with a lot of her spend. So like, yeah, I want them to see it, and I want them to, their feedback's really good, like they're designers too, but we have to figure out the rules of the game so that this is not like everything has to be perfect. It's like, if there's something really, really bad, yes, please tell us and give us feedback. But we had to kind of create that flexibility. And if you have that in place, then your flywheel can go.
Yeah, it's amazing, because I think one of the things that people don't realize is the partnership between a growth team and a brand team is such a valuable one, in which one, especially with mutual respect, where it's like, hey, I trust you that you're not going to go so off the rails that you're going to hurt the brand. And then, other way around, you're not going to be so secure around the brand that you don't let us try new things. And so being able to have that partnership and relationship, I think, is actually one of the secrets to some of the best marketing, for sure.
I think part of that's enabled by defining your brand as the value you bring to customers' lives and the way you improve it. So we know the value that we bring to customers' lives, and we've defined our brand on those tenets and pillars. And surprise, surprise, they map really nicely to what the messaging that works in market. Um,
Yeah.
but I think if you define your brand on an aesthetic solely, which a lot of people do, um, or an execution, you've now handcuffed yourself and are going to just create this friction that doesn't need to exist.
Oh my God, the execution is every time we get a brand book and it's just a billboard or a TV ad, and I'm like, that's not a brand book. That's a campaign. But that happens so often, and I think you lose the ethos of the brand and like why it exists. You don't exist to be a marketing asset. You exist to do something in the world, and I think that that's like a key piece of it.
Yeah, and like I don't want to. I'm not jealous of those people at all. Like who can't can't see the brand as the value that they bring in the world. And I'll say our team is excellent at that. But not in an era where now AI agents are talking about your brand, and all you can do is you use your language to talk about the brand. Like an aesthetically driven brand can never not driven, an aesthetically solely defined by aesthetics can't exist in that context.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's such a fascinating thing. My question for you on the creative side, and I am truly curious around this, around when you guys are doing testing on creative, how structured is your creative testing, or is it fairly broad and you're saying, hey, we're going to run these things and we're going to see what happens, or I'm going to specifically do an A/B test in a holdout group because we're trying to really have a great structure around this. There is this balance between moving fast and being very accurate, right?
I would say it's probably looser than you would imagine. And the reason, so what tight looks like in my mind is like, okay, we have this static asset that's like doing really well. This photography is clearly working. And we have this positioning and messaging that we're going to try around like A, and now we want to try this new message. So we're going to like put it on this image because we know this image works. That's not bad. That's pretty good, and actually an easy way to get like do some messaging testing. And frankly, if you don't know where to start, it's not a bad place to start. I think there's a couple of things where there's some messaging that you quite literally just need a different execution to actually land the message. So for example, like one big part of Coterie is that we, parents have better experiences with us than other brands. And being able to talk about that actually means amplifying influencer voices that have that experience and can talk about their experience directly. Because like no one should trust an ad from a Coterie handle talking about their experience with other brands. That's kind of messed up. So like you need that execution and that's okay, because it's like as long as this message could not exist without execution, you're kind of A/B testing message one versus message two. And also sometimes it's just the reality of it, like the same image will fatigue. And so if you just have this one image and like that's what you're just doing everything on, then like after a while it's going to seem like the new test won't work, even though you just need to like switch some things up. So it's why it's a little bit looser, just like throw some stuff in. And if after a big concept you're like, I have a lot of faith in this, we've tried 4 different approaches at this, did this suite of messages do anything versus did this suite of executions on this new message versus our core do anything? If not, we'll put it to bed for a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's like a really important thing, because I think a lot of people are afraid of testing because they feel like it needs to be this very scientific perspective on testing. And I think that there is some science around it, but just getting started with testing is better than no testing at all. And so I'd say just even being broad and having a perspective on your campaigns is really important. And so, Ankur, as I know we're coming up on time, so my last question for you is there anything you or your team are experimenting with right now that you're really excited about?
I'm excited about a lot of stuff. We're experimenting with a lot of things. And so this will veer a little bit from messaging, but I'll talk about it. I think, so I kind of hit at this thing where we have like a paid acquisition team and an organic acquisition team all on growth. I think what the kind of stuff that the organic team is cooking up right now is really, really cool. So thinking through, like, we have a really, really amazing ambassador program that really relies on Instagram and a little bit of TikTok. But they're doing a lot of innovation and testing right now for like YouTube influencers, because it's a different incentive structure that you need. But when they hit for months because they're just ranking or being recommended. So we made some progress there, and I'm excited about that. Ditto for like figuring out how to think about parent groups, because that's just a very different way to tap into that than just like ambassador influencer based muscles. And I think that's just new to the market. Like no one's cracked that. And so I think the kind of stuff we're doing there is like truly net new, and that makes me really excited.
That's really interesting. I love that. Well, Ankur, thank you so much for joining us. If someone wants to find you online, where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, if they want to learn more about me, they can go LinkedIn. I look just like this, and it's Ankur Goyal. If they want to learn more about Coterie, which you really should, then it's coterie.com or Google Coterie diapers.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ankur, for joining us. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.